Welcome everyone to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, Living Your Soul Work, the journey to embrace moon wisdom rituals in the dance of manifestation. I'm Lisa Bonis, and I'm really excited to be hosting this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Devaa Haley Mitchell and address questions about her upcoming course, Living Your Soul Work, which begins Monday, April 22nd. A little later, I'll explain how you can participate in this course, even if you can't attend the live sessions. But first, I want to introduce our guest. Reverend Dr. Devaa Haley Mitchell is a transformational leader who guides people to reconnect with their spiritual depths, unleash their leadership gifts, and step into their full potential. She's the co-founder of the Shift Network and founder of the Inspiring Women with Soul series, which has served over 120,000 women from more than 160 countries. Devaa received both her BA and MA at Stanford University, with her doctorate in ministry from Wisdom University, and she's also an ordained interfaith minister and a priestess and focalizer of the 13 Moon Mystery School, as well as a member of the prestigious Evolutionary Leaders Group. And in just a few minutes, we're going to open up for your questions. But first, I want to welcome Devaa, who's going to begin our call by leading us in an opening invocation and telling us a little bit about the current moon cycle. Welcome, Devaa. It's so great to be with you today.
Hey, Lisa. Wonderful to be here with you as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to get started here to just let us all tune in with the current moon cycle. So perhaps some of you were on an earlier call with me where I really went through the whole moon cycle and how we can really use it to guide our manifestation and really living into our into our soul work and the reason, the life purpose why we're here, but doing it in a more feminine way where we are not just using our intentions and our willpower, but we're really linking in with the natural cycles that are already existing. And especially those of us who are in female bodies, we are much more naturally linked to the seasons, to the cycles. For those of us who are still bleeding, the menstrual cycle is a 28-day cycle, which is linked often to the phases of the moon. And we can tune in with the lunar phases to support us in really bringing our own soul work to manifestation in a more graceful way that doesn't require as much efforting, as much of the push energy. So right now, no matter where you are, everyone on the planet is in the same moon phase, though it looks different where you are. So what you'll physically see in the sky may look different, but you're still in the same moon phase. So we're at the very end of the cycle. We're in the waning crescent moon. So tomorrow, for those of you who choose to enroll in the course, we'll actually, though the course doesn't start for a couple weeks, we're really laying the foundations in the preceding time. And those of you who choose to be in the course, by tomorrow can actually start and be a part of 2 full moon cycles with me. So you'll really have a good chunk of time to do the manifestation process. So where we are now, today, on the 4th of April, is we're at the end of the cycle where the moon is very small. It's crescent waning. So tomorrow we'll be going into the dark of the moon. And so today, the cycle that we're in is connected to the archetype of the Queen of Death. And let me just pop up an image so you can get a sense of one visualization. So, and you'll see it says the 12th face, the Queen of Death. So this whole archetypal process that we'll be going through connected to the moon phases has to do with the mystery school that I'm a focalizer of, that I've been trained in, which is the 13 Moon Mystery School. And that is brought to us by Ariel Spilsbury, who's one of my mentors. And so there's 12 different phases that we'll be going through. And so the 12th phase is, I should say there's 13 phases total, but the final phase, the 13th phase, encapsulates all the moon phases. So 12 of them are directly linked to the moon. So we're at the very end, the 12th phase, the Queen of Death. And you'll see she is a queenly figure. She's driving a boat, which is the boat that's often depicted as going across the river Styx at the end of life. And in the moon cycle, what this means is this is really a time for release. It's a time for letting go. It's a time for, as we set our intentions each month, to come back to just letting go of your specific outcomes that you were hoping for. And we're taking a little bit of, we're preparing for tomorrow, which is going to be the Great Mother. So it's a cycle of birth, starting in the Great Mother, we go through all the phases of the moon, and then we come back to death and the Queen of Death, and then rebirth. So birth, death, rebirth. So we're in the letting go phase now. And then, and this is also a phase that is connected with the element of earth. And the next phase, which is the Great Mother phase, starting tomorrow, will also be Earth. So I wanted to read a little bit of an invocation to Earth, because in this course, and in general, as we work with the moon phases, we can also work with the elements. And the elements can really assist us in our manifestation process as we bring them present. And you'll get a lot more guidance through the course about how to do this. But they're very powerful tools as well. So let me read you this invocation to the element earth. And you can even just close your eyes if you want and take a few deep breaths and just drink in these words. I am earth, source spring of life. I hold the power to nurture and sustain the pulse of life that runs in your veins. I am the self-conscious intelligence held in elemental resonance. Allow me to serve your awareness. I am the sacred body of the goddess. I hold the power to heal through assimilation. It is my green nature that feeds your vibration. I am crystalline clarity singing out from your core. I am the fecund potential within the seed. I am the death shroud, outliving need. I am grounded exaltation. I am the power of manifestation. Receive me, for I am earth. So just take a few moments breathing into these words, letting them penetrate in you, and just noticing your feet on the ground. And really just imagining that you are in nature right now. This grounded presence that really supports our whole manifestation journey. So as we are in phases of the moon that are connected to Earth, like this Queen of Death phase, like the Great Mother phase and other phases, the more that you really draw on the power of Earth, get into communion with it, get into rapport and relationship with Earth during these phases in particular, the more it can really support your process. And as I said, right now, we're in the process of release, letting go, creating space. As we begin the manifestational journey, setting your intentions, there's an inhale that happens. But first we have to allow the exhale, that there's really a cycle of inhale and exhale. And so now we're letting go of all, like kind of cleansing our palate so that we can be in the space tomorrow. And I'll be doing, for those of you who enroll in the course, a much deeper class tomorrow, working with the Great Mother. And she is the space of this open, receptive listening, which is really, really important. Oftentimes people are focused on working with their manifestations and jump right into setting the manifestation or setting their intentions and diving in without first allowing space to go into this, what we call the great void, this fecund potential where you're really listening. And if what we're trying to do is co-create with the divine, not just pushing our own little will agenda, but we're really aligning with the deeper cosmic forces and allowing this co-creation to happen, we first need to be in a space of deep listening to find out, what does the universe have in store for us that may be something different or grander than we might have imagined for ourselves. So it's really important to take the time to do that for a few days, really at the beginning of the month, before you jump right into setting your intentions and moving forward. So that's what we'll be doing in depth tomorrow. And then today, so many of you have written in tons of questions. So thank you for those questions. And there's so many of them that we're just going to dive in and answer as many of them as we can.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Devaa, for those powerful words. I've already signed up for the course, by the way, because I'm fascinated by this topic. I can't wait for it to begin. So as you mentioned, we have the rest of our time together to dive into our viewers' questions as we prepare for Devaa's upcoming course. Again, it's called Living Your Soul Work, and it begins officially Monday, April 22nd. And if you want to check out the website and learn more about the course, you can visit lunarsoulwork.com. That's 3 words with no spaces, lunarsoulwork.com, to see the full description. So let's go ahead and get started with questions. If you've got a question for Devaa, go ahead and type them in, and I'll be happy to read them aloud. And as she mentioned, we've already got some submitted, so let's get started with some of those. I've got a question here from Bryn, who says, there's so much emphasis on the subject of soul purpose, soul mission, and I question the true meaning of these concepts and would appreciate your interpretation.
Great. Thank you, Bryn. So I wanted to answer this question first because it's really the title of the upcoming course, Living Your Soul Work, and what does that mean exactly? So my lens is that we are each coded with something very specific, a unique gift or gifts that we're really here in this lifetime to manifest fully, a unique contribution that we can each make. And so there's a process for many of us. You could use the word soul work almost interchangeably with life purpose, but I like soul work because there's a kind of a deeper sense to it, that it is something that is guided by this deeper part of you, by your soul. And so there's a process for uncovering that. I'm imagining all of you listening are probably at different stages of that, especially as we go through life and age. We shift in terms of what the focus is of different, what I call chapters of your life. And there might be different phases. There might be a time where we're more consumed with our family life and really giving that our full attention, or career, and those things don't have to be separate from our soul work. But what is beautiful is when the deepest passions of our soul, the things we're truly skilled at, the contribution that we want to make is really married with how we're able to spend our precious time. And I often think of this kind of a pyramid, where one face of the pyramid is your skill set, another one is your passion. There's the foundation of the pyramid, which is your life experience. And then finally, who do you really want to be serving and contributing to? And at the top of the pyramid, there's this sweet spot that I think of as your soul work. And so we're always in a process of discovering the next facet of that wants to come forward. And then using the moon cycle is a really powerful way to then be taking that idea of your life purpose and how you want to manifest that, and then really bring it into practical 3D form. And there's this system that we'll be using all these archetypes, and every few days doing different pieces to really support the full flowering, both on the soul level and doing the energetic and using those tools, but then also on the very practical level of taking the steps and making the contacts and really doing the work for manifesting that. So I hope that gives you a sense of what I'm referring to when I speak of soul work.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Well, then let's segue into a similar question, but Pam wants to know more about what is the lunar cycle of soul work and how will it affect us?
Great. And Pam, if you didn't get a chance to look at the hour-long program that I did with Stephen, it really goes through the entire lunar cycle, which we'll be obviously diving into in much more depth in the course as well. But that really gives a great thumbnail. But, in short, the idea, as I was starting to speak to the last question, is that as you're manifesting your unique soul work, the lunar cycle of soul work is really about how do you bring it into form in the world? And how do you do that in a more feminine way? And how do you do that in a way where you are kind of like riding the currents that are already in place in nature so that it's much less effortful and much more graceful? So with every phase of the moon, people usually think of like 4 main phases. They think of the dark of the moon, which is also sometimes called the new moon, though they're actually different. The dark of the moon is when it's totally dark. And then the new moon is a day or two later once there starts to be a small visible crescent. So people think of that phase. Then they think of the quarter moons, full moon, the other quarter moon, and then again the dark of the moon. So those are what people usually think of. In the work that we do, we're getting much more detailed. So there's almost like micro phases of the moon in between each of those major phases, and there's different components that you do along the way. So as I was speaking about tomorrow, starting when those who enroll, we do the kind of preparatory Great Mother session, we'll be really in this deep listening space together of really what does the universe want from us. Then we move into the next phase with the growing crescent moon called the waxing crescent moon, where we start working with the goddess of compassion. And then that's where our intentions start coming into more concrete terms, where we're really fleshing out what are the intentions we want to manifest in this moon phase. And then you keep moving along when you get to, there's many microphases you go through, but then when you get to the fullness of the moon, we work with the archetype of we call her the goddess of love. She has many embodiments, but one of those embodiments is Aphrodite. So we're really allowing the fullness and bringing our joy and beautifying and really adding a lot of energy. At the fullness of the moon is when the energy is the ripest. And so there's a lot that we can do to really harness that fullness. And then, we're refining as we move back towards the next moon. So the lunar cycle of soul work is how you use the moon's phases to your benefit and really harness the energies of each of these different phases so that more gracefully you can be manifesting your soul work on the 3D worldly plane.
Okay, fascinating. Thank you. Let's move into a question here from Donna Marie, who says, will the course cover receiving, acknowledging, embracing, embodying, and beginning my soul work in this lifetime?
Yeah, as I was speaking to before, people are at different phases. So, there's a phase of really listening, and as I said, there's usually these different chapters of your soul work. And so, wherever you're at for this next chapter, we will be helping you tune in and focus. Now, this course isn't specifically about figuring out your life purpose. There are other courses that are more designed to specifically help you focus on that. But most people are aware that there's maybe a piece of that bigger life purpose that they know they really want to bring into manifest form. And so this is a process I'm taking people through to really bring, as you said, to embody it, to receive guidance, to embody it, to bring it forward. And along the way, there's usually a refining of your life purpose, specifically in the next chapter and specifically in the next moon cycle of what you want to bring forward. So that's what we'll be focusing on.
Okay, great. Let's take a question here from Leslie, who says, how can we easily integrate the lunar cycles?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things someone wrote in saying, how can we get a bigger copy of this moon mat, which is an image that I showed in another program that I did. So we will be sending everyone who enrolls in the program a more high resolution PDF of what I call the moon mat. And the moon mat is an image that shows you all of the phases of the moon. I can attempt to hold it. Well, I think the resolution is not going to be very good if I just hold up an image of it, but there's a graphic that basically shows all the phases of the moon, and each phase of the moon has an associated archetype. It has an associated sacred geometry, color, and so it's almost like a game board. So one of the ways we think of easily working with it is you print out this game board, and then you use a token. Could be a piece of money or a little talisman, and you're literally almost like you're moving around a game board. Every couple days you are moving your token around, so you can just see, where you are on the moon cycle and what are the associated colors, images, archetypes. Now, for those of you who don't have that handy, at least something you could do is there's different moon calendars. One of the ones I like is called a wee moon. That it's almost like a little journal that, just the same way you would have a day timer, one of the old school paper day timers, but it does show you where you are with the different phases of the moon, and that can be really helpful just to keep it top of mind for people, because I find that most of us, because we're in such a digital electronic world, are a bit disconnected from what is going on in the natural world and with the moon cycle. And so we've just lost track of it. So having something like the wee moon calendar or this game board that we'll be using for those in the course is really a helpful way to put that on your altar, so you can just have it front of mind. And I put it in a place in my bedroom so that in the morning I'm just, it doesn't have to be something that takes a lot of time, but it's just something that's in my awareness, in my consciousness, so I can really be utilizing that natural cycle that's already happening, and harness that energy for my own purposes.
All right, that sounds fun. This question from Fandy, you may have already addressed this, but she's got two questions. She's asking, what practical steps can we follow to aligning with the ever-present force of the moon? And I believe you sort of addressed that, but then she asks, how does this relate to Western astrology?
Yeah, Western astrology is a bit of a different system. And so that is not a system that we're specifically going to be using in this program. We're going to be using more of the archetypal system. And I find that it just maps so perfectly onto the moon cycles. And that's really the way that I've been trained and that have used and succeeded with my own manifestation. So that's really going to be the focus, not the Western astrology.
Okay, great. Then let's do a question from Pam, who says, is there a special time in the moon phases that's best to manifest what we truly desire?
Yeah, well, I think the point is that it's really great to use the whole cycle of the moon. Oftentimes we are not, we set an intention, especially this happens at the beginning of the year, and then people go away from their intention and kind of forget about it and then wonder why it hasn't come into full bloom. And part of it is because you haven't, the same way as if you planted some seeds and then you leave them, they may not, if you're not tending them regularly and pulling out the weeds and giving them water, a lot of those seeds may not flower. They may just die off. And so, the fullness of the moon is a time when there's so much energy that, people typically think of the full moon as the time to really manifest your intentions and let those intentions be in full flower. And that's true, but I think it's much more beneficial to be even just spending a few minutes each day coming back to your intention and help. You're doing different little tools, different techniques, refining things, honing things, taking action on things, using the different elemental prayers to charge up and bring more energy into your intentions. So really using the whole cycle, even if you're just, as I said, spending a small amount of time each day, is really the best way. But you do also want to focus on the fullness of the moon, which in the program, there's different modules that we'll be looking at. So there's one phase, which is the full moon to the waning quarter moon. So when we're in that phase of the program, I'll really be showing you how to work with the energy of the goddess of love, how to add energy to your intentions. We'll be working with mantra at that point, and we'll also be working with different things that we can use, including essential oils to lift up our frequency, because a lot of this, there are the practical steps that we want to be taking, and we do need to be taking, but the process of manifestation is also where like attracts like. So the higher our vibration and frequency, the more we can lift that, then the more we're attracting, we're more magnetic. We have a greater magnetic pull towards us. We're able to pull those things we really desire into our field. So I'll be teaching you, as I said, through some of these different processes, mantra, essential oil, also just joy. How do you really cultivate a state of joy and these different things that can support your manifestation? And really all the phases of the moon are important, but during that module in particular, the full moon to the waning quarter moon, we'll be putting extra emphasis on the manifestation potency of that particular period.
Okay, great. Thank you. Very helpful. Let's go to a question here from Sue, who wants to know how to best develop my lunar cycle in my soul work business.
Well, I think, so she's asking about how does she apply this to her business specifically. And the truth is that the process really isn't very different, whether it's with your business or it's with your personal life intentions. So usually within your business in any particular year, you have some larger objectives, and then in any particular quarter, you have specific objectives, whether that's financial objectives or a certain amount of people you want to reach or bringing in new clients or whatever it is. And so what we'll be looking at in this program, and what I'd invite you into with your business, is getting really specific for the larger goals you're trying to achieve within the year and within the quarter. Then what needs to happen in this particular 28-day moon cycle in order to really manifest the fullness of your business intentions? And so the same way that we work with the personal intentions, you can have your business intentions and be doing the same process. So it is equal, just the content that you would be working with would be different, but you would still be enhancing energetically those intentions and then taking the very practical business steps that you need to do to fulfill what you're wanting to bring in with your business.
Okay, great. Well, for those of you who are just joining us, we are here with Devaa Haley Mitchell learning about her upcoming course. It's called Living Your Soul Work, and it begins Monday, April 22nd. And you can log on to lunarsoulwork.com for all the details and to register. So let's get back into questions here.
Lisa?
We've got a question here from Teresa, who says, how does the moon influence or interact with our creativity and novel ideas? Does its cycles influence the way we receive downloads about what wants to emerge through us?
Sure. Let me just say one thing before I answer Teresa's question. So I wanted to just mention, though the course does formally start on April 22nd, if there's any possibility for you to start right away so that you could be with us for our course tomorrow and take advantage of this whole extra lunar cycle, I would really encourage it, because what we're attempting to do is there's quite a lot of foundations I want to lay with people before we get into the nitty-gritty of the day by day, going through each of the aspects of the archetypes. And so I'm really wanting that's why I'm purposely making this available, to get people started so you would have 2 moon cycles to really embody and learn this whole process. So if you can start as soon as today or tomorrow, so you can be a part of this whole next moon cycle that starts tomorrow. Otherwise, you'll be starting kind of in the middle of the cycle, which is okay, because there's a foundation laying period that we'll be going through. But I just know people will get, there's more than can easily be absorbed within 1 moon cycle. And so I'd really love people to have the benefit of that if they can. Okay, so with all that said, I think, Lisa, we should probably repeat Teresa's question again so it's fresh in everyone's mind.
Okay, great. And thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. Teresa says, how does the moon influence, interact with our creativity and novel ideas? Does its cycles influence the way we receive downloads about what wants to emerge through us?
Thank you. So yes, the moon definitely influences our creativity. And I think that the more that we're really paying attention to the moon, to her cycles, it really opens that creative portal and also opens the gateways for much deeper intuition. So there's different things that you can do in your creative process at different phases. As I spoke before, in the beginning of the cycle, really being in a space of listening is really important, and opening. And then as you work, and you're starting to set your intentions to work with your creative process as well. And there's different things you can do at different times. Taking, for example, as you're in the goddess of compassion, which is in the first phase of the first phase that we'll be working in, it's the second archetype. That is a wonderful time to be getting the downloads about what specifically your intentions are and what's wanting to manifest through you in this 28-day cycle, and then to work with it creatively, so doing some artwork that you have a visual representation of what it is, not just the outcome, but the feeling that you want to be generating, and that you work with that creatively. And then as we move on towards the fullness of the moon, that's also a very wild, expressive time when the energies are full and when people's creative capacity can really go into full bloom. And so, at each different phase, there's different times, where you're working with, and you're going to get different kinds of downloads at different times. So you're working with different energies. Again, as we cycle back towards the new moon, that's going to be a time for listening more again, and where your creative process might get more quiet, more internal. And so you're working with it in a variety of different ways, but you will notice through the moon cycle that the quality of the information and the kinds of ways that the information will speak to you from your own intuition, from the larger cosmic forces, will be a little bit different. But the more that you can be staying in tune through the full moon cycle, the more your whole creative process will be really embellished by the work and by the moon cycle.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, Tracy wants to know if you could share a specific ritual or process that we can use to sync with the moon energy in this phase.
Well, as I was saying, right now, this current phase is the Queen of Death phase. And, people in our culture have a little bit of resistance often to the Queen of Death. But it's really, as I was saying earlier in the call, there's really nothing to be afraid of, because what we're letting go of in this phase is what is not really serving us. What are we clinging on to that perhaps is not really aligned with our deepest soul work, with our deepest intentions, with who we really are? And sometimes we, might even set intentions that, or something that our mind or our will or something we might want to manifest. But through the process, it becomes revealed that exactly the way we were hoping for something to happen is not flowing easily and gracefully. And so a simple ritual I would recommend you could do today would really be to go and sit in darkness, with a candle, and really allow the emptying out of whatever it was that you were dreaming for, hoping for, that would manifest in the way you were thinking of it, where you're just kind of letting go, and you're letting go of those pieces, those threads, those intentions that are not really aligned, that are not really true for you right now. And we have to allow some space, some release, some exhale, so that we can then create space and really create a fertile ground for everything that is wanting to manifest in this next cycle. So the same way we're constantly inhaling and exhaling, in the same way, it's kind of like if you were to think of the seasons, the Queen of Death would be somewhat akin to the winter season. And some people have a bit of an aversion. They don't like the winter. They don't like the cold. They don't like the rain. But from the perspective of the natural world, it's completely needed. Where it looks like it's a fallow time, beneath the soil, there's a lot that's going on. That's a time when the soil is regenerating. And if you didn't have those winter periods or those fallow periods, there wouldn't be the energy and the space to have the renewal that comes in spring. So it's the same thing with, these are all different cycles, right? Much smaller cycles, like the month, and then the larger cycles of the seasons and the year. So they're all necessary. So it's like we need to have a little mini winter inside of ourselves to let go, to release, to be in the darkness, to exhale. Feels good to even do that in this moment. So that then we have the resource. It's almost like taking a Sabbath, that we have the fuel and the inner resource to then begin again in the new moon. So that's what I'd recommend doing today.
Okay, great. This actually leads really beautifully into Kitty's question, who says, I thought the full moon was about releasing and letting go. Is the connection in letting go of outcome and how I want to feel when I let go?
Yeah, I saw that question that was written in advance, and I have been trained in a different system. So the full moon, in the way that I was trained, is not so much about release. That is really a time that's about the fullness, and kind of like that would be the equivalent. The full moon would be the equivalent of like summer if we're using that analogy again of the season, where things are in full bloom and you're adding your joy and you're bringing the energy is high. And so you're really allowing the fullness of your vision and your dream, and it's blossoming, or it could be blossoming. So I'm not sure which system that you're coming from. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying that it's different than the way I think of things. And then as we're speaking now we're currently in the waning crescent moon. We're in the let go, the relaxation, the exhale. And so usually when we talk about letting go, it is letting go of your specific outcomes that you are trying to manifest. So it doesn't mean you're not letting go of the bigger vision of your soul work, but you're in this cycle kind of letting go of, oftentimes we have a vision and we can get pretty like this, very narrow about it. We think, we're trying to manifest a specific outcome, and there might be something else that in the greater cosmic alignment is still aligned with our soul work, is still aligned with that outcome, but it's not exactly the way that we pictured it. And so we're making space for, letting go of our specific individual will and making room for some other tweak perhaps to show up that is still aligned, and perhaps is actually even more aligned with what we're really trying to bring forward.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. Looking at the clock here, we have time for a few more questions, but before we take any more, I want to give a few details about the course itself. Again, it's called Living Your Soul Work, and this is going to be a really powerful journey under Devaa's expert guidance, where you'll align with the cycles of the moon to complete a key piece of your soul work and take grounded action in manifesting your deepest calling. And the course takes place on Mondays at noon Pacific, officially starting on Monday, April 22nd, but we're beginning with a couple extra calls before then. Also, we have one session on a Saturday, May 4th, and that's at 10 a.m. Pacific, and that's time for the most potent energies of the dark of the moon. And if you can't join us live, that's fine. You won't miss the teachings. You'll still receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and course handouts on your course homepage. And also, I'd like to remind you that the Shift Network offers a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, giving you until May 13th in this case, to make sure that you absolutely love it. We want you to be happy. Also, As an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can stay connected with one another. And everyone who registers receives the Living Your Soul Work bonus collection. We've got some great things this time. First, you'll receive a teaching from Miranda McPherson's Life of Grace course in order to work with mantra and sacred sound to end the spiritual poverty of lack, and that's entitled the Mahalakshmi Initiation. Next, you'll get 3 workshop sessions from Devaa's Inspiring Women course. And then you'll receive an audio dialogue with Jean Houston entitled Women's Critical Role in an Ever-Changing World. You'll also get an audio dialogue with Gangaji called Women in Spiritual Leadership. And then you'll get an audio dialogue with Sylvia Borstein entitled Daily Life as Spiritual Practice. And finally, you'll receive a copy of the Soulful Women Archetypes Guidebook. And when you register by midnight Pacific, on Thursday, April 4th, you'll receive these extra bonus gifts. The first is an audio dialogue with Devaa, hosted by Lisa Schrader, entitled Fanning Your Feminine Fire and Speaking Your Soul Truth. And a 90-minute audio class with Jean Shinoda Bolin called Liberating the Goddesses in You. What will you do with your one wild and precious life? So before we get back into questions, Devaa, what are you most looking forward to sharing in your upcoming course?
Well, what I'm really excited about is that this is a very new model. So what we're doing with this course is we are taking a 28-day period, the lunar cycle, and I'm going to be giving you little doses of wisdom, little bite-sized nuggets every day. So instead of just our normal model, which is we have a class once a week and then people may kind of forget about things in between those classes, this is really a kind of hold your hand process where every day you're going to get specific guidance about what to be doing with a particular phase of the moon in little bite-sized chunks, so that we're hoping in 10 to 15 minutes a day, you can really metabolize and take in these teachings on a deeper level. And that process starts on May the 4th, which is why we're doing a special call. That will be the next dark of the moon. So we want to really get people kicked off on the right foot there. And then before the course, between April 22nd and May 4th, there's going to be a foundation laying period where you're going to get to learn how do you use mantra and what are some of the different processes for manifestation and familiarizing yourself with the archetypes. And as I said, there's even, I think, really more than can be easily digested between that April 22nd and May 4th. So I would encourage people to jump in as soon as you can, because as soon as you register, right away you'll get access to this Archetypes Handbook, so you can start be familiarizing yourself. Right away you'll have access to this beautiful audio with Miranda and start learning about how to use mantra, which you can use right away for manifestation. And then I have a couple courses that are around visioning, clearing obstacles, and manifesting. And I'd really love to have people have that all up front. And why this excites me is that I feel like this is a time when women are clearly rising. We each have unique soul work and very important gifts to be putting forward into the collective. The feminine wisdom that's moving through each of us is needed now. It's kind of an all hands on deck moment for our planet. And so I'm really looking forward to supporting other women to get really clear on the piece of the soul work that they're wanting to manifest, in the next couple of months, or the pieces, and then giving people very specific support and guidance around how to bring that forward into the 3D, and then having a space where we can come together in community so that if, sometimes people try something and they have questions or something's not working quite right, we have a place where we can talk about it, course correct, hone, refine, and also witness and celebrate each other. I find that when you get to see what's manifesting through other people, or how are they navigating the obstacles that are coming up, or what is the artwork that they're creating, or what is the altar that they're creating, it's very inspiring to see what's moving through other people. And so I feel like there's a much bigger power that comes when you're part of a collective that's each person's trying to really manifest a beautiful thing where we're amplifying each other. And so I'm really looking forward to the community that's coming together. There's already a large group that is starting to work with the teachings, and then we'll be starting in more full force tomorrow. And then having this community and then seeing what is going to be coming out on the other side in terms of the manifestations. And really teaching people a process that once you learn this process, you can use over and over again every month or every 28 days as you're seeking to manifest your intentions. And so, I can just feel this powerful wave is starting to build of manifestation, and the feminine manifesting our individual, but also collective intentions. It feels kind of like this feminine tidal wave of energy and power and blessing force that I am really excited to support unleashing, because it's really needed right now.
That sounds awesome. Thank you for offering this. Let's go to a question here from Dawn, who says, is there a female archetype for each full moon that assists in working with one's own archetype, as well as the goddess energies and one's emotions, especially our shadow side?
Yeah. So in the 13 moon system, every full moon, we're working with the same general archetype, which is the goddess of love. Now, there's many different embodiments of the goddess of love. So one embodiment is Lakshmi, another embodiment is Aphrodite. There are, within every different tradition, there's usually some goddess that kind of embodies the energy of the goddess of love. But there are light and shadow qualities for each of the archetypes. So as we're working with, some of the light qualities of the goddess of love might be, one would be unconditional love. So that's one of hers, or even that agape love that's not personal, it's not romantic love, but it's just this wide, vast love force that comes through. The goddess of love is also a lot about pleasure of the senses, and how can you really expand your awareness through pleasure. And the pleasure could be in the form of sound, incredibly beautiful sound, or incredibly exquisite tastes, or it could be sensual pleasure. It could be the pleasure of just a feather on your skin, but really enjoying what brings you joy and what brings you pleasure in multiple facets. So those would be some of the light qualities. And then there are also darker shadow qualities. So one of the ones that comes to mind that comes up among women, jealousy is one of the shadow qualities of the goddess of love. Comparison is another one that comes up related to the goddess of love. So, always looking to see, how do you compare? What are you doing? What's someone else doing? Oh, that person published their book before mine, or gosh, she put out something that was on the same thing that I was going to. So there can really be this competitive energy that can come up. Other issues related to the goddess of love on the shadow side include body image issues. How do we feel about our physical body and our form? And, there's definitely, people who have a real low self-confidence in their body image, or even a very distorted picture of their body. So what I encourage people, if there's a particular thing, you can do this when you have a longer period of time that you're working with, which is, again, why I encourage people to enroll sooner. But as you're working with certain light qualities, to also take something on if there's a particular shadow quality that you really want to work with during a moon cycle. Usually if you choose a quality to work with, your life will offer you opportunities. Like if you said, I really want to work with my jealousy this moon cycle, then inevitably the universe will present you with some opportunities where that's going to come up. and the jealousy might arise, and then you're really consciously working with it. So, whether you choose the light and the shadow of the goddess of love or with one of the other archetypes, that's really up to you. But, this is a microcosm of really a 13-month mystery school that I run. And then that's really a microcosm of this larger 13-year mystery school, which is the way it was done kind of in Avalon times. So we're doing fractals. This is a small little fractal, and we're incorporating everything within one moon cycle. But as if it really resonates with you and it's something you want to go deeper with, then there's ways you can study with me or others to deepen with these archetypes and with all the light and shadow qualities that are associated with each one.
Okay, thank you. Let's say we're talking a lot about women and the feminine aspect, and Catherine's asking, is this applicable to men as much as women, or do women just respond better due to their naturally cyclic life?
I would say yes and yes. So the first yes is this applicable to men as well as women? Definitely. The feminine is not just in women. We're all a spectrum. So men definitely have the feminine, and it's often, depending on the man, more or less expressed. In many men, the feminine is more suppressed because our culture hasn't really supported the flowering, and really we're all a blend of all of it. So it does apply to men, and yet at the same time, my own perspective is that women are particularly attuned to the cyclical nature of things, especially because we have bodies that are very linked to the cycles of the moon. So, people are at different phases of their life, but when we're in our earlier years and we're menstruating regularly, that can be tied to the phases of the moon. Someone else wrote in saying, she's bleeding on the full moon. And that's, someone who's very aligned with the full moon. She's in her fullness, her blood is flowing, and then probably, in the dark of the moon, that would be the time where, there's a quiet happening, and there's, within the menstrual cycle. So I think just given that reality of our bodies, that we are intrinsically a bit more tuned in. It's not that men can't attune to it as well, but it's almost just like it's in us in a deeper way automatically, given the way that the female body is wired, and our hormones and all of that cycle with the moon.
Right. Okay, great, thanks. This is an anonymous question, and it says, what is the best time in the cycle to actually create art or writing, etc.?
So as we were talking about before, so the module that we'll be working with, which is the waxing quarter moon to the almost full moon, that's a really powerful time. So for the waxing quarter moon, so that means the moon is growing, but it's at, it's half dark, half light. So that is the time when we are working with the creator destroyer archetype. And the mantra literally is, I focus, I create. So that's the time where you're getting really focused. You move from there, as the moon is getting towards fullness, to from that to I intend, I empower. And then as it is almost at full moon, you're going to I play, I inspire. So there's these different little mantras every couple days that we're working with. So that's a kind of long way of saying the period of time from the waxing quarter moon to almost or through the full moon is really a great time for creativity and inspiration and using those specific mantras. And then in the full moon, it's I feel, I respond, I beautify. So that's also a beautiful time. So, from kind of that quarter moon as it's growing towards fullness, that is really, you can be doing this work and the artistic expressions at any time, but that's really a time that I would focus specifically there.
Okay, great. We got a question here from Angela who wants to know, is it a good idea to bathe in the moonshine similar to laying out in the sun? And my question is, didn't Ben Franklin do that?
I don't know about Ben Franklin, but it's definitely a wonderful thing to do. Moon bathing is, wow, it's such a quiet, beautiful time. And someone else had written in a question about intuition and how can they really strengthen their intuition. And I would say that this is a really powerful way. Just first of all, going out in the moon brings you more in tune. And it's also a time when things are usually quieter. So there's usually less physical noise, but even mental noise. That's why they say, meditating really at the beginning of the day or the end of the day when there's less kind of buzzing in the collective and you can really hear, more deeply spiritually, but also just literally taking in the moonlight. I know when I go camping, I'll often put up my hammock and just lay in the moon, and you can really feel there's just a quiet, energetic. It's very different than the sunlight, but it's kind of like a nurturing, revitalizing, quiet energy that helps us to open up. I'm closing my eyes because I'm visualizing it. Can help us to open up our intuition. And yeah, I would say it's really a wonderful idea. So especially if you live in a place that's warm enough, where you could, spend time in a hammock or even just laying on the earth and looking up, as much as you can, really, especially if you're in this program through the moon cycle, but really starts to harness you much more deeply to the rhythms and cycles of the earth and to the moon, and becoming, just the same way you would become acquainted with any person in your life or even with any archetype, really getting more acquainted with the moon and just absorbing that energy. We are resonant. So the more that you're resonating with the moon and resonating back to her, where we start to open up these deeper dimensions, that are quieter, that require deeper listening, that are more subtle, but are very, very powerful. So I would definitely encourage you.
Right. Sounds like a great idea. Well, this has been a truly enlightening conversation. Looking at the clock here, we're about out of time. I want to thank our viewers for being with us today and for all of your terrific questions. Once again, Living Your Soul Work starts officially Monday, April 22nd, with a bonus call or two in advance. Again, you can visit lunarsoulwork.com to learn more and to register. So, Devaa, before we go, do you have any final words for our viewers?
Yes, I would say just to really start tuning in with the moon cycle, whether you're in our program, which I hope you decide to join, or you're working in your own way. Tomorrow is a very potent day. It is the Great Mother. It's the new moon. This is a time to also be quiet. As I said today, today is the Queen of Death. Tomorrow is the Great Mother. Death and rebirth, but utilize this phase, utilize tomorrow to really be listening. And then a few days later, setting your intentions. And the more you can really tune in with the moon, what's going on with her, and then map your activities to her, working with the earth. I gave you a beautiful earth invocation, but tuning in with the earth, listening to her guidance, harnessing her power to help you manifest. It really is a way that we can empower our intentions to happen with so much more grace and so much more ease, so that we're not just having to effort and push and burn ourselves out, but we can really just kind of ride on the current of what's already happening in nature and use it to bring our own beautiful intentions into full flower. So I hope you'll do that one way or another. It's really a joyful, powerful process.
Right. Well, thank you once again, Devaa. It's been an absolute delight talking to you today. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thanks to everyone who's been participating with us today.
Right. Once again, I want to thank everyone who's joined us today. And on behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great day, everyone.
It's the birth of a new way on planet Earth. We welcome this new day on planet Earth. It's the birth of a new way on planet Earth. We welcome welcome this new day on planet Earth. If I commit to make a shift, will you come in?